Stonegate Church, great to be with you guys again for another episode of Life Around Stonegate. Get an opportunity to just celebrate and highlight for you things that are going on around our church family. And there are lots of things going on around Stonegate. That's why I actually love getting to do this. It gives us time to talk about those things and explore them and just celebrate them along with you. And another thing that's going on, we're in the week of Halloween. So Halloween is here, which
Yes, it is.
I know is your favorite holiday.
It's one of my favorites. Yeah, Christmas is pretty good, but yeah.
I'm just making that up. I'm sure though you're doing some of the dress up stuff because you got kids.
Yeah. So Liam's gonna be a bumblebee.
A bumblebee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he loves bees right now.
I
Kind of
love
weird.
that. Are you guys gonna get out do the trick or treating thing?
It depends. It's gonna be really cold tomorrow night.
It is gonna be cold. You got to bundle up.
Yeah, and
You got to bumble up.
bumble up. Yeah, it's cold.
That
and
was good, wasn't it, Austin?
It
Come
was
on, give
good.
me some
It was
credit.
a quick wit,
I am a
just-
dad, so yeah.
Steve would be proud.
He's gonna get killed by a bee.
Oh yeah, Rodney cannot be a bee. Maybe he should dress as a bee so the bees leave him alone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's going to be way too cold. We've got a newborn, so
Yes, you do.
don't think that's going to
Yeah.
be.
So that means you're sleeping a lot. You feel really refreshed this morning. You feel amazing.
I'm sleeping probably more than my wife,
Yeah.
a little bit, but
Yeah.
not a lot.
Yeah. Well, Halloween's also, it's a great moment if you think about it, in that neighborhoods come out.
Yes.
So I know in one of the neighborhoods I live in, man, it feels like the night of the year where the most people are out.
Yeah.
They're out socializing, connecting. I've had a lot of times even walking around my neighborhood on Halloween feeling like, why do we only have to do this? Why do we only do this once a year?
Yeah.
Why can't we do this a lot more often where we all come out of our houses and talk to one another and our kids have fun and
Yeah.
all of those ingredients outside of like whatever Halloween is, excuse me. But it just makes me think, like, is there a way to redeem it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think some folks around Stonegate have tried to ask that question.
Yeah. I know in the last handful of years, the Needhams have kind of set kind of a pace for how to do that in a certain way. And then I think each family, being able to think about that strategically for them. I think, my context, we're getting to where little kids, it's probably a little bit different a way to redeem Halloween. Maybe we redeem it by inviting neighbors to go trick-or-treating with us, and maybe we carry conversations along while we're walking through the neighborhood. I know some will do the big showdown, like king-size candy bars. We want to show the generosity of God to our neighborhood. But I feel like there's so many ways you could, depending on the neighborhood you live in, because some of them you don't have that many neighbors or whatever. But
And
so
I
many
know
ways
too,
to
if
do
you're
it.
listening to this, it might be a little last minute. But if you are curious about being able to take advantage to redeem Halloween, we definitely have resources and tools and some best practices we'd love to share with you. Just send us an email or reach out. But yeah, a lot of our families do engage of saying we've got a lot of people coming out that night. So
yeah, we do.
let's set up a space that you can pray with people. You can go above and beyond and giving them extra sugar.
Oh, yeah.
Surprise the
Why not?
kiddos with that. Why not? And make a fun moment to be able to really get to know your neighbors. I know my wife and I will walk around our neighborhood and do some of that a little bit too. But it is one of those nights where we do try to, at a minimum, be intentional about getting to know some neighbors maybe that we haven't met before. So some of my neighbors are, if I'm being honest, are not super social. So it's the one night I can knock on their door and find myself even in a conversation with them that hopefully I can carry on even beyond that.
It's like the one night to be neighborly.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
So bundle up, take your kids out, think of ways, no matter what, how the Lord really might want you to be intentional about getting to know a neighbor, having a conversation. So while kids are running around getting their fill with of candy, think of a way that you can really connect with someone, pray with someone, get to know someone. Maybe even the door will open up and you get to share the gospel. Who knows?
Be
So,
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so it is Halloween, but we also know it as a different kind of a day.
Yeah.
Reformation Day.
Reformation Day. Yeah.
Which it's, I don't know what the math is, probably 508 years?
Something like that.
Yeah, 508 years ago.
500 years. Martin Luther kicked off the Reformation. And that is something for us to highlight. Stonegate, we're part of that Protestant history. So it's an important part in church history to stop and reflect And even, I won't go too long on it or get too much into the weeds, but if you think about it, Martin Luther, even at that moment, wasn't necessarily trying to take down the Catholic Church, but rather he loved the church, and he wanted to see the church always reforming and always growing and always striving to become more true to its theological statements and convictions and beliefs. And I actually think that principle of always reforming, of wanting to be more congruent and have more integrity with our theological beliefs, is a good aspiration and even a good legacy of the Reformation that all of us can hold true and celebrate.
That's so good.
Yeah, so we stand in that lineage. It's amazing to think about.
I was listening to a podcast this morning actually on it, and just even our Bibles, like our physical Bibles, is one of the playouts of that kind of season of the Reformation where people would be killed for having an English Bible, and we don't get killed for that. We get to use it. Most of us have multiple of them in our house, so just a neat that sparked a lot of what is now so like a treasure to us, that we get to have the Word of God in our homes and hear from Him regularly. And
I agree.
It's so sweet.
What a beautiful legacy that the Bible is readily available. You can have it on your phone. You could have. I mean, you're right. The average American household, I think I read a statistic, even for non-believers, has 2 to 3 Bibles in it.
Oh wow!
Just because they're so common and ubiquitous, and in some ways that can be a blessing and a little bit of a downside. The blessing is obviously God's word's everywhere, but the downside is maybe we just don't appreciate it as much as we should. But you're right, like Luther set off a Reformation that we are experiencing many of the blessings of still today. So speaking of blessings, a bunch of great things going on around Stonegate we'd love to make sure you're aware of. One of those, I'll just ask your thoughts on, Daniel. I know we've been doing Alpha, so Sean's been leading that up for us. And, tell everyone a little bit about Alpha if they haven't heard anything about it.
So, and Alpha is such a neat thing that we've started over the last year or so, but really it's a kind of a curriculum that's been put together strategically to help people walk through some of the basics of what does it mean to follow God, what is Christianity, what is the Bible. So anyway, it's a really safe place for people who have questions about God and the Bible, faith, to be able to show up. And what I love about it is it's very like judgment free. So like you're not going to get a lot of Bible teachers kind of like, well, this is your answer. It's actually a safe place to ask the question and then just kind of sit in that question to be able to process your story in that. And then here the only teaching is from a video. And so anyways, it's been really neat because a lot of people who don't know Jesus are coming with a lot of the people in our church who are helping serve and be a part of it. So it's a really neat merging of a lot of people who don't know Jesus or not just sure about, haven't taken that step, and so it's been neat. And I know they're finishing up. They're really close to
and they've had a really good group jump in this round, and I can't wait to hear more of the stories that come out of that. But one of the things that always reminds me of, I lived in Seattle, which was a very like kind of post-Christian context before moving to Dallas, and some of the language we'd often talk about was often seeing folks that even if like let's say the number 1 is where you become a Christian, you go from 0 to 1, and 1 now you're a believer entering into the kingdom of God. Well, a lot of folks, they're starting at like a negative 10. So like if you're a negative 10, just very hostile and aggressive, or maybe you've had a really negative experience, or stereotypes of Christians and Christianity in the church, it can be that progression that moves people along, that gives them the proper environments or the relational environments that move them from a negative 10 to maybe a negative 6. And sometimes it's just like, hey, I got to know a Christian, and they weren't judgy.
They weren't mean to me.
And they were nice to me, and they were willing to answer my questions, and they were willing to have conversations. And that just moves you a little bit further along of like, okay, I'm willing to ask my questions now, and I'm curious, and I'm willing to explore. And I think if the church and Stonegate, we can provide environments for that, that allows a lot of people to go from like a negative 10 to a negative 5 to, God willing, all the way to crossing the line of faith and becoming Christians. And so that really is so much of the hope of that, is to create an environment where people that are maybe very far from God and maybe very against God can begin to move toward God.
And then we baptize them.
Which we absolutely love getting to do around Stonegate. So another thing we have going on where we're seeing lots of life change is marriage care. So
it's been neat to see. Marriage care has some pretty deep roots. It's almost as deep as like our redemption groups, but it's a little bit more acute care for marriages. And what I love about it is really no matter where you're at on the spectrum of your marriage, it can be great for you, you know.
100%.
And I know the content they go through by Paul Tripp is just so good and helpful for a lot of our marriages in our church. So if you haven't done it, I think any marriage would benefit from it. And I think if you love marriage, which if you're married, I hope you do, you should want to invest in other marriages in our church family. So I would go through it and then maybe take someone else with you and go through it, because I think our church is only better when people's marriages are better.
Yeah, I think you're highlighting such an important thing, that marriage care is not designed or only for those that are having a really hard time in their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually designed for anyone to see their marriage thrive and flourish.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, your marriage, if you're married, that is the most significant and important and meaningful relationship you have in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just let that sit with you for a second and think about that. The most significant, meaningful, important relationship in your life. So it's going to shape so much of your life and how your life goes. So why would you not regularly want to put some development, some investment into that? So even if your marriage, you're going, gosh, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't you want to be like, man, my marriage is like an incredible blessing, and I find such joy and safety and satisfaction and intimacy inside of it. Yeah. And so that's what really marriage care is designed to like help people have amazing marriages all around Stonegate. Yeah. And we love getting to, I was actually just at an event last night at dinner. Stonegate was hosting, and a couple was sharing, and they said they were really in a tough spot, and they went to marriage care, and it was a defining moment that turned around their lives. Confession came forward, intimacy began to grow, and now there's such joy and satisfaction in their relationship because of the blessing of marriage care. So, in all honesty, I think everyone should participate in that. So
there's another story I remember. We celebrate all of our new members at a membership dinner, and there was or maybe I'm thinking of another moment, but basically there was a guy who shared just in tears, in a lot of ways was expressing just a lot of love for God, but through how he was healed through a lot of his addiction, a lot of his hurts, and how he had hurt his wife. And she was just so gracious, and the Lord has done so much healing in their marriage, to the point where I actually went up to them the other day while they were worshiping in service, and they were like taking communion together. It was such a beautiful moment where they were praying together and worshiping together. And I just went up to them afterwards. I was like, I just love everything that's happening right here, and it's such a neat like display of God's grace on your life to see y'all healed and worshiping together like this. So it's neat just to see as people are going through these moments, to see them heal and worship Jesus.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Another area too where we're really trying to help folks, because let's face it, this is just an area that also creates lots of stress and pressure for so many people, and that's in the area of like finances. How do we steward the resources that God's given us? And so at Stonegate, we've offered Financial Peace University for a number of years, and we've got a great guy, a guy like I've just really grown to appreciate and respect and admire over the years, named Scott Royce, who leads a lot of that up for us and does financial coaching and care and equipping for a lot of people around Stonegate. And it's just been a blessing to see people figure out too, of like, okay, here's another huge part of my life, along with marriage. Here's another huge part of my life that has implications for how my life's going to go, what my life's going to look like. And I want to do it God's way, and I want to steward it well, so that this is an area I'm not just kind of surviving, but I'm also thriving.
Yeah. Well, what is it? They say you have, there's only a few things that you're limited. You've got time, you've got money, and there's like one other one. But you only have a few things in your life that are like resources, and it's one of those that I think we're, and I've heard Pastor Rodney say this a lot, that we're under-discipled in. And so I just think it's a neat opportunity. And it's cool. We actually also have, if you don't want to go through the class yet, we have a free Ramsey Plus account for everyone who goes to Stonegate. So if you haven't done that yet, you can go to our website on the homepage and you can create an account. But it's really neat. They give you a free budgeting app, all these resources. You can go through the baby course. You can do it pretty quickly. But that's another resource that I know we've just kind of are putting in front of people to say, like, we want to help you in this area.
Yeah, and I believe, too, on their parents, I believe there's actually resources to disciple and even equip your kids on that, too.
Yeah.
So if you're going, I know we've got a number of families that want to provide training and equipping on how to handle finances in the way God would want, not the way the world would have them do it. So if you want to train up your kids and already do that and give them some equipping, maybe if you're part of the homeschool world and you're just looking for additional curriculum or content in that space, that is such a great tool where it's all ready-made, put together for you and free, that Stonegate would love to provide for you guys. So, and, here's the last thing I'd say too. It's so interesting when some of these topics come up that are so intimate and meaningful in our life, whether marriage or finances. I always love to just ask myself when those things come up, what's the first emotion I feel? Like, what's the emotion that comes to the source? Is it a sense of dread? Is it fear? Is it excitement? Is it cynicism?
Yeah.
Is it hopelessness? Whatever it is, and realize God is greater than that emotion.
That's good.
God's bigger than that emotion. Don't let that emotion be the obstacle that keeps you from moving forward. Because sometimes that emotion, it's good, so acknowledge it and pay attention to it. But realize that your God is able and He cares and He has good for you. Even as we were unpacking on Sunday at Stonegate, God is willing and working good in your life right now. So I think it's so important. I love to actually see that in my kid's face when I bring up anything that I know is going to be hard.
Yeah.
I brought it up the other day. I was like, hey, let's run a couple miles. And the look on my girl's face was just one of just complete dread.
I understand.
And misery. And I was like, okay, that's great. That's the first presenting emotion. Okay, now that we've identified that, we can feel it, and then we can move forward from it. So I think that's a really good point for us to think about in our discipleship journeys.
Well, and one story that I think is really worth just celebrating Stonegate is we've had, I think it was this past week, and I don't know how many people are in this class, but we know that 15 credit cards got chopped up as a result of just working through some debt and things like paying off. So that's a huge thing to celebrate. Who knows how much that actually is in terms of debt relief, but that's amazing.
That is amazing. And if you think about that too, that's just people, really what that signifies is people wanting to experience more financial freedom in light of what the good news of the gospel says, that we shouldn't, there's the proverb of the borrower is a slave to the lender. So saying, I want to step away from that, and I want to walk in the freedom of just being able to use my resources in the way God would want me to use them. So, so we're about to move on from Halloween.
Yes.
The last thing we want to make sure everyone's aware of out there because here it's beginning.
It's happening.
Right after Halloween, it's on.
It is.
You're going to walk in every store. You're hearing Bing Crosby. That's old.
That's
Bing
old.
Crosby.
Maybe Michael Bublé.
Mariah
Carey.
Carey. NSYNC.
Maybe.
No? Yeah,
I don't know. They have a really great Christmas
album. I'm trying
album.
my best. I know. I got to work on my Christmas music catalog. JoJo's laughing at me over here. So, but I'll tell you. But we're moving into that. You're going to go to Starbucks. They're going to have all their Christmas drinks,
cups.
That don't say Christmas.
Wow, does that mean pumpkin spice lattes are done?
So possibly.
Wow, that's crazy.
They kind of keep them on the down low menu though. You can still order them for a while. So until they run out of all their product.
Here's my question: when do you start listening to Christmas music?
Oh man, I'm an early adopter.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I love it. I don't want just 4 weeks of Christmas.
I agree.
So when people are like, I'm not doing it till after Thanksgiving, I'm like, you're missing out.
Yes.
So we like to go in early.
Yeah.
So probably, and not too early, maybe 10 days before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
By the time Thanksgiving's rolling around, we're around the house. I want the Christmas tree up.
Gotcha.
I want the music. It's all part of the Christmas season.
Yeah.
I don't think Thanksgiving and Christmas are separate. They're
totally put together.
They're mashed together in a really great way. So we have a lot going on around Stonegate in this season, and one of the big things is Christmas Eve services.
Christmas Eve.
So, and that's
Christmas
on a
Eve.
Sunday.
On a Sunday this year.
So it's going to be a little bit different. You want to tell us the service times for that?
So because it's also on a Sunday, so we're going to have a little bit of different approach to how we do services. So we're going to keep our regular service time. So that's our 8:30, our 10, and our 11:30, and then we're adding 2 services in the evening at 5 and 6:30. So those are going to be multiple opportunities for us to. And Christmas Eve is really, I think it's the second most evangelistic type of a day for
really
our church family. So it's us just thinking about that strategically has been really fun.
I read a study a couple years ago, and I think it still holds true. 87% of people say if someone invited me to church on Christmas Eve, I'd go.
Wow.
87. I mean, it's the ultimate low-hanging fruit for inviting someone to church. So folks are so open to being willing to come to church on a Christmas Eve. So it's such a great opportunity to invite them. And we promise you, they will hear the gospel. And we just absolutely can't wait for people that don't know Jesus to hear about Jesus on Christmas Eve. And that's going to happen here at Stonegate.
Yeah.
Love that.
Well, and each service, we try to do our best to keep those at like an hour long, candlelit service. So they're all going to be like the same. So you're not missing out if you're
shorter sermon.
Yeah.
Lots of Christmas carols and music and all that. Pretty family friendly and all that. So it should be a wonderful time. It's always one. And then my wife, she kind of leads the charge. Like just Christmas just spews all over the building.
Yes.
We just put the trees up and the lights and all that.
best.
So I love walking in here and seeing this place totally Christmasified and all that stuff. So
It's going to be fun.
that's going to be happening soon too. So
It's going to be here before we know it.
yeah. So, we hope you have a wonderful Halloween. Just an encouragement once again. Just think about an intentional conversation you can have with a neighbor. Everyone's going to be out, so bundle up or do whatever it takes to get outside. I won't make my bad bee joke again. I was tempted.
Oh, yeah.
But get outside and meet a neighbor. Have a great time. And we would love to see you already thinking about who you can invite for Christmas Eve services. Love you, church. If you need anything, always reach out. We are here for you. We love you. We care about you. See you guys next week.